And Dave, welcome to the SportsCage. You've got a nice little tan. You've been outside a lot.
I've been outside. I was on the turf today when it was 43 degrees at field level. So, yeah, I've been out a little bit, but there is some good news from Riderville, but it's not great news. We'll get to that coming up at about 3:30 when it pertains to this week's lineup against the Calgary Stampeders.
Well, speaking of the turf, it just, the heat just bounces off of it. But the good news is in 2028, from what I understand, the Riders will have new turf at Mosaic Stadium. It's in the 2027 city budget. So I'm hoping when you're out in the field, Dave, in 2028, the reflection won't be as bad. They've improved the technology. You won't get so hot.
There you go. Well, it's amazing that turf would have lasted 12 years then, right? So there you go.
Yes, which is 2 years longer than normal. They apparently feel that it's good for 10.
Oh, okay.
But it's very expensive too, so we'll forgive the city for not going or going 12 instead of 10. Now, weird stat. The Roughriders haven't beaten Calgary at Mosaic Stadium since 2018. I would never have expected that.
No, and it's one of those things, even as poor a year as you would think that the Calgary Stampeders had, which led to all of their off-season changes, they did win here last year, right? It was the final regular season game of the year. So there's a lot of people that put an asterisk beside that, but a win is still a win is still a win.
Right, and the Riders, I would say, weren't overly interested in that game. Is that fair to say? Or
well, you've heard of declining a penalty. If you could have declined a game, there is a possibility that the Riders would have done that. Is, of course, just about a half hour before the game, the gust of wind in Montreal allowed the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to clinch the first spot in the West Division, making the game virtually meaningless because the Riders were going to be locked in second place no matter what happened. So the Riders went ahead and they made some adjustments. Jack Cohn got a lot of playing time in that football game, you'll recall. Shea Patterson started. So yeah.
Right. Now, that gust of wind, what a memory that is. That was so bizarre. I don't know if you're a religious man, and I don't know if God cares about football, but was it an act of God back then? I mean, it was so strange.
Well, if you do, you know that he's a Blue Bomber fan. We'll tell you that right now. Because that was something that you'll never see again for sure.
Well, Farhan, I think, is on deck. I mean, we're going to find him at some point. He's somewhere in Boston. I hope he hasn't forgotten that he's doing SportsCage. But why don't we get to the Roughriders right now, Dave, and you can sort of bring us up to date, and you've got a lot of interview clips that the fans would be very interested in listening to.
Well, let's get to what happened today at Saskatchewan Roughrider practice. What happened was that they held a closed practice, so we will get to all of the details with what happened as far as the players that were on the field. It was funny because there's different techniques that can be used because the team will be wearing their obsidian green jerseys this weekend, right? So one of the techniques to find a player's status and probability of playing is whether or not they're wearing the obsidian helmet, which has got the dark face mask, right?
Brilliant.
So you would think, oh, that's a great sign. But then all of a sudden on day one, of course, we've got Deshaun Johnson who goes ahead and, he decides he's going to take it off. So he doesn't like that. So we're like, well, what does that mean? Is he? No, he's not injured. Just didn't want to wear it on day one. So going by that, we're judging that as well. What the other thing that you can do, and again, this is kind of giving away a trade secret, but I was told that when you have a dark on dark jersey, it's sometimes hard to see the numbers, correct? Number one, don't get me wrong. The obsidian jerseys, I love. They're my favorite jersey the Riders wear all season. But the other thing you can do with a dark on dark, say in BC's case, is that you start to memorize the cleats and the type of cleat that the players are wearing. So then you can spot them. So what you look to do is see who is wearing dark cleats, because that could be a giveaway, right? So if you want to know, on the defensive line, none of the players are wearing dark cleats right now. In the linebacking core, only one player was not wearing the dark cleats, and that was CJ Rivas. He was wearing the white cleats. In the secondary, everybody was wearing white cleats except for Roland Milligan Jr., so there's a pretty good sign that he'll probably start on Friday.
Okay, well, that is some reporting tips for any youngsters I want to get into the reporting business.
Well, see, everything works well. The only problem is with that is that what happened last year was that the Riders in the first game predominantly wore their regular cleats. So, for example, Kean Schaefer-Baker wore his neon green cleats. Great. Well, unfortunately for the Riders, or the broadcaster of the Riders, is that in Game 2, they liked the look of the dark cleats so much that everybody changed into the dark cleats. So that whole went out the window.
Well, what's amazing is that at the AGM, they announced the amount of money that they earned through these new jerseys and helmets and uniforms. It was astronomical, like they hit the jackpot.
$6 million. $6 million.
Isn't that something? And yet when I saw them, I thought, well, one thing that I thought was really cool was they were the closest green to black.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a unique concept. I loved the helmets, but I don't see the numbers as well. But you've got tricks about that, which
tricks.
I don't.
There's tricks.
Anyway, let's see if we can get Farhan on board and take a quick break. SportsCage continues in just a moment. Studio, the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Dave Thomas. I'm going to throw it over to Dave and let him take over the show because he needs to tell us what the heck's going on down at Mosaic Stadium.
I need to answer questions. My phone is blowing up. Dave, talk about the Riders. So if you've got a question that you want, how about if can we throw the numbers out there? 306-936-6262. Call or text, and then I'll try to answer your question if you've got a question. But let's run down this matchup, okay? Saskatchewan Roughriders are 4-0. Calgary is 3-1. First meeting of the two teams this season at Mosaic Stadium coming up on Friday night. Today's practice was a closed practice, meaning that nobody gets a chance to see it until it's completed. And as I was mentioning earlier, we try to use all the visual cues that we can to try to figure out who was participating and who wasn't. We did see that Samuel Amelis had worked up a sweat today. But then again, it was 40-some degrees on the turf. So, again, that's not a great sign. But we did notice that Tavon Campbell likely didn't take part. So following the practice, I caught up with Coach Mace, and foremost in my mind was whether or not we would see that cornerback Tavon Campbell, who's got interceptions in back-to-back games, whether we would see him back on the field here on Friday night.
TC, it might be a little bit tough for him, but it's nothing serious, but just maybe this week might be tough.
Now, he sustained a groin injury is what it was. So it was after he returned the interception for a touchdown, but it was in a coverage play where you may recall that he actually went off the field, and he tried to come back and just didn't go. So obviously something is tweaked there. When you're talking muscle strain, you have to make sure that you take care of it appropriately, because very quickly it can become worse than what it was. So Tavon Campbell is likely going to be out when it comes to the starting lineup on Friday against the Calgary Stampeders, which might be music to their ears because the Stamps coming in have the second best passing defense and seventh best passing offense. So what I'm getting at here is that their seventh best passing offense is already going to be inhibited because Reggie Begelton is not going to be in the lineup. He is on the long-term injured list in Calgary with a broken leg. Clark Barnes, who scored a touchdown for them last week, also was shaken up on that same play and hasn't practiced this week. So one less defensive back, the caliber of Tavon Campbell, might be music to the Stamps' ears. Now, when it comes to this matchup, though, of course, the winner is going to get a pretty big leg up in the West. If you look at the way the West is broken down thus far, BC and Winnipeg have already played their games together, right? So their season series is done. Winnipeg has won that 2-0. And yes, we are only in week 6 of the CFL season. I did not design the schedule, so ask me no questions. But with the Stamps and the Riders only playing twice this year, this game is going to have some added magnitude. So I asked Coach Mace if this week, being week 6 of the CFL season, was any more important, given the fact with the records of the teams, and this is only one of 2 meetings against the Stamps.
All the games are important, man. We know how this league goes. Depending on what happened in week 6 might determine what happens at the end of the year, right? So we treat each one the same, truthfully, and I know what the makeup is of the game, just with the 2 teams' records. But, we're approaching this one like we did the last 4.
So we've talked about the Calgary offense against the Saskatchewan defense. Again, the Riders giving up the 4th most points per game in the Canadian Football League this season. But if you look conversely at the Riders offense, number 1 when it comes to points per game this season. Calgary, by the way, has given up the fewest points this season, averaging just 20, and they haven't given up a touchdown in the first 3 quarters of a game yet this season. So it's going to be a work in progress, and a lot of that work is going to come down to the Riders' offensive line. The Riders lead the league in rushing yardage per game, 138.5 yards to be exact, in rushing yards that they put up there. And a lot of that has to do, of course, with the offense. Despite the injuries that we had in training camp with Sean McEwen and Philippe Gagnon going down early, the Riders have been able to put it together. Peyton Collins came in, started at left tackle when Jacob Brammer was out. He got nicked up, but he performed very, very well and isn't on the 6th game. So that gives me some hope that we could see him back this season. However, we did learn that Travion Tate was nicked up last week, has been in a sling all week this week, and is likely going to go on the long-term injured list, and we'll have to see whether or not he can battle back. So Zach Fry, who took his place in the game against BC, will get the start at left guard this week. So if you line them all up, left tackle to left guard, once again, you're going to start with, who's our left tackle? Oh, we got Daniel Johnson. Sorry.
That's a great...
Oh,
just a great find.
Absolutely. Great Canadian, right?
Right.
So next to him will be Zach Fry. Then you've got Logan Ferlin. Next to him will be Jacob Brammer. And then, of course, Jamarcus Hardrick. So they've only given up 5 sacks all season this year. Remember when the times weren't quite that... Well, you know what I mean. But saying that, right, so I talked to Coach Mace a little bit about the offensive line, because the offensive line, they actually came back early from their bye week to get together and start watching film and prepare. Wow. And if this is sounding like a rerun, that's what they did, of course, going into training camp this year. They came into Regina early to get to work together. So I asked Coach Mace a little bit about how much accountability that offensive line has taken, and how much of that load that they're taking upon themselves to make sure that they're prepared and the best that they can be.
You speak to those O-linemen, it's... Man, they do so much. That, they got together and we're watching film before training camp started. They made it to make sure that they got in to meet up together, do their own thing. They hang out and have separate meetings outside of what the requirements are. They hang out off the field. So definitely, at the end of the day, a coach, we can only do so much. Players win the games, man, and they're linking up together out there. So always hats off to those guys.
And, of course, we've given a lot of props, right, in respect to offensive line coach Edwin Harrison, who's done a terrific job, who he is called Coy by the rest of his coaching staff.
Coy.
Coach of the Year, right? So just a nickname. And, again, it's well-deserved, right? So he works with these guys, and they've come about and done it the right way, which sets a tone for the entire team. So with the standard being the standard, you often hear Coach talk about that, right? Coach Mace says, we have a standard and we hold everyone to that standard. So the question I asked him as a follow-up was then, who's got a higher standard, the offensive linemen themselves or the coaches for the offensive linemen?
Just in totality of what we're looking for, how you attack each rep, whether it's in a team setting or an individual, certainly those are things that we try to drive home. And Coy keeps them. He keeps that standard every single rep, even in Indy. You watch how hard those two, Logan and Yosh, are going in their reps. If you're a younger guy, you can't take it play off, right? So they set the standard, no question, and you love it because they're just looking to get better with each rep.
All right, so there you go. A lot of love for the offensive line, rightfully so. And a fun stat for you, and again, clearly that I have too much time on my hands, but I went and backed up Rob Vanstone's thoughts because he went and added it up. And so then I had to go back and double check. Why I ever have to double check Rob Vanstone is a mystery to me too. But
that's right. Get
this, Jamarcus Hardrick since 2019 on teams that he has played for when he has started, his team is 59-12.
Wow.
That's 6 years, right? So that's 2 losses a year essentially when he's starting, right? Like that shows you the caliber of athlete that he is, but it also shows you what he brings to this group. So the offensive line is going to be big on Friday night, and again, that's what we talked about primarily today.
Well, I got a bulletin for Tommy Stevens on quarterback sneaks. Run right over the big man because it's a gimme.
Well, it is.
He tried to run left once and got stopped.
You know what?
Nothing against the left side of the line.
Want to get into a rabbit hole? Again, 3 times this season, Tommy Stevens has gone to the left. And all 3 times he's gone to the left, he's either scored a touchdown or he has been able to get the first down by more than 2 yards.
Wow.
But I would still, if I'm him, go to the right.
But that's why they pay you the big bucks. No. That's why I'm not getting paid the big bucks.
That's why my wife feels like a widow some days.
14 former Stamps are now Riders. 14 former Riders are now Stamps. Let's talk about the former Stamps who are now Riders. Head coach Corey Mace, offensive coordinator Mark Mueller, Edwin Harrison, who you just talked about, Marquay McDaniels, who is a star in Calgary now, Saskatchewan's receivers coach, Joshua Bell, of course, an outstanding player in Calgary now, our defensive backs coach and pass game coordinator. The players, Micah Johnson, Jake Mayer, Mike Rose, Tommy Stevens, Trevon Tate, Jameer Thurman, Sean McEwen, Sean Bain Jr., and Kadeem Carey. On the other side, 14 former Riders, now Stamps. John Hofnagel, of course, their special advisor. Craig Dickinson, former Rider head coach. He's with their special teams. Baron Miles, Marcus Howell, Marcus Klund, all coaches in Calgary that at one time were here. And Colton Hunchak, who he'll know everything that Saskatchewan's doing, and he'll be able to pass it on because he was a receiver here last year. Now he's an assistant special teams coach and offensive coach in Calgary. Stamp players that are former Roughriders: Dave Vernon Adams Jr., Miles Brown, Tevin Jones, Derek Moncrief, Godfrey Oneka, Micah Tights, Damon Webb, Gary Johnson Jr. Now, how can that happen? You've got 28 dudes. And if you think about, you always want to beat the former team you played for.
Oh, yeah.
This should be a nasty affair. They're playing,
Absolutely.
like all these guys that want to beat their former team.
The two guys from Calgary that I've identified as the ones to watch, and I don't know if Luke Mullender is going to agree with me or not, but Miles Brown, sensational defensive tackle. He played so well here last year, and I've liked what I've seen from him in Calgary this year. He's taken on a lot of double teams, which kind of is interesting and speaks to the caliber of player he is. But how about Derek Moncrief? There was a lot of people that wrote him off, right?
Yep.
And pick 6 last week. Looks like he's flying all over the field. Like he looks like he is totally in tune with himself and the playbook that they put in front of him. So,
and he looks lighter. He looks faster.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, he just doesn't wash cars.
No.
With his family's car wash business, he can still play football. What did you think of the fact that really they swapped defensive tackles? It was almost like a trade with Mike Rose coming here and Brown going to Calgary, and they're really not similar at all as defensive tackles. You got a Plugger in Brown. You got Mike Rose, who's lighter but faster. He can even make tackles outside of the box. So what did you think of that swap? You can never teach experience, right? And so that's what Mike Rose brought in with him. And I would suggest, and he will be the first one to deny this, but I thought that he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder when he came in. And just having an opportunity to talk to him and listen to him and then hear Luke describe the film that he sees and watches on him, the intelligence that he's got for the game is really, really exemplary. And again, Mike Rose didn't want to really go down the rabbit hole of talking about the Calgary Stampeders this week, but he's ready to do the talking, of course, with his shoulder pads come game time on Friday. Yeah, I'm sure he is. And back with SportsCage, brought to you by Regina Motor Products. I'm here, Don Hewitt, filling in for Barney, along with the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Dave Thomas. I just received a text that said, sorry, Don, but enough of your blabber. I want to hear Dave talk about the Roughriders. I listen to the customers. I listen to the viewers. I listen to the listeners. I throw to you, Dave.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go. Well, how about if I bring you the breaking news from the Canadian Football League today?
Okay.
Remember that little it was it was more than an animated conversation between BC and Montreal at the end of that football game, right? Yes. So the Canadian Football League has come down on the two teams today, announcing that BC defensive lineman Kamoko Toure has been suspended for a game, which is a big thing, right? Suspension is really rare, if you will, in the Canadian Football League. So going to suspend him, and I'll read this verbatim. It says, has been suspended for one game for committing a non-football act inciting a post-game altercation. Montreal defensive lineman Isaac Adiameo Berglund and MJ Sherman have been fined for committing a non-football act engaging in a post-game altercation, while Montreal offensive lineman Père Olivier Lestage has been fined for making inappropriate contact with a TSN camera operator. In addition, Commissioner Stuart Johnston has said non-football acts negatively impact the reputation and professional standing of the CFL, and they will not be tolerated. These actions do not reflect the values of our league. The post-game altercation in Montreal became an unnecessary focal point, taking away from an incredibly entertaining game won on the final play.
And what was scary, I mean, these guys are big dudes. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they ever connected without a helmet on to the person that's being punched at, they're knocked out. I mean, these are like heavyweight boxers in terms of size and strength.
What I don't understand, and somebody way smarter than me knows this answer, and so I apologize that I don't, but remember in the old days, like the benches used to be on opposite sidelines and you exit the opposite ends of the field, if you will? Like, in BC, that used to be the case until a couple of years ago, and then they moved the benches both onto the one side. Now, I'm not sure if that's for ad board visibility on the backside or what, but
maybe
to compound things in BC and Vancouver, both teams exit not only at the same field, through the same tunnel. One team turns left and one team turns right. If you go to McMahon Stadium, the benches are still on opposite sidelines. Same deal with Edmonton, same here in Saskatchewan and in Winnipeg. Hamilton, though, again, you're in a situation where the bench is on the same sideline. However, the teams have to go to opposite ends to get off the field. In Toronto, it's again a same deal, same side, but the one team exits. The Argos go to the far side. The Riders come to the near side.
Yeah.
In Ottawa, again, same side. And then the teams, again, they go their separate ways. And in Montreal, it's very much... I find Montreal very interesting because the teams are on the far sideline from where our vantage point is, but they kind of exit in a similar fashion on the far side of the field with doors that are very close to each other, which you could see in that skirmish last week. So.
And they seem so squished in Montreal together. Anyway, I'm going to throw back to you to carry on here on the Riders.
Well, we were talking offensive line today, so we had an opportunity, and I had the opportunity not only to talk about where we are at this point in time with Jermarcus Hardrick, and again, you recall that statistic, 59-12 when he's in the lineup. But not only to do that, but also to congratulate him. So here's the conversation we had when he came off the field. Game 5 of the season against the Calgary Stampeders on Friday night. You are 4-0. Are you happy with where you're at?
Not happy at all. Happy to be on a great team, great organization. Definitely not happy that we're 4-0. Not satisfied, not happy at all. Excited to play with my teammates, excited to get better, excited to be out in front of the sea of green. Let's get better, let's play ball.
You've approached a bye week before. Did you do it any differently knowing what you've known in the past and having an opportunity maybe to reflect on the first 4 games, or do you shut football off?
No, I shut it off for a little bit, but I definitely have to get better. Especially some people may say I'm old, so I have to come in here and make sure I'm loose. Definitely, I'm always trying to find ways to get better. I can go back and watch film from my 2015, 2016. I'm always just trying to get better. It never stops. And I think we got the right group of guys in the O-line room. Leaning on Sean. Sean is back. Logan's in the room. We just have a great group, and guys want to get better. Like, I love to send DJ clips. So, like, hate to say it, but me back in my old days, and I send him like, this is what I did here. I want to get back to this, and me and him will come to practice and we'll work on it. So we're always trying to get better.
4-0, and I'm going to throw some more numbers at you. Your team leads the league when it comes to points scored per game. You lead the league in rushing yardage per game. You've only giving up less than a sack per game. What do those numbers mean?
We have each other back. I'm not going to get too much in stats. We have each other back. The quarterback's helping us out because I definitely have lost some reps this year. And I looked up and the ball was going. I was like, is that a touchdown? But we're having fun. We're doing some good things. We definitely got a lot to clean up. Wow. Yeah, let's run the ball more.
We had a very raw conversation up in Saskatoon at training camp. It is almost a year to the day since you were injured in Vancouver, and you talked about that process in getting back. When you look back at that year that's gone by, what comes to mind?
How much I missed it, just the work I put in, and how much, I leaned on my teammates, my trainers, and my coaches, my wife. Just for 2 months, I couldn't do nothing with my leg. My wife had to get me off the bed. She had to put me in the bathroom. She was already like my superwoman, but that really showed me, like, she had to scrap me up. For literally 2 months, my leg was locked. She had to put me on the toilet. She had to get me out the bed. She had to put me in the truck. And that just showed just showed me like even more. Like I got to get back. But being here when I was hurt and watching the guys practice, just watching individual, like I missed that stuff so much. So won't be perfect, but every day, usually when we go individual drill, I'm trying to run over there because I remember this time I couldn't run over there. So that's why at practice I'm probably running around like a dog because of the time when I was on crutches and I couldn't.
So when you think back, there was obviously a mental hurdle to get over, right? Have you cleared that?
Cleared the mental hurdle, cleared that, and that was the hardest part. That was the hard. I remember just telling myself, you can squat, but it wouldn't squat. Then somebody would push me down when I was at PT, and I was like, oh, I squatted. Then the next time I go up there, I still wouldn't even squat, and I was like, it was so much mental. So that was the hardest part, and I got so many people to thank. We ain't got time, but I got therapy, coaching, all, so it was a lot went into it.
Okay, before I let you go, then I want to go back, if it's all right with you, to talk about your superhero. You and your wife, Sam, celebrated your 13th wedding anniversary. I did some research. If you're getting a traditional gift, it's lace for your wife on your anniversary and your 13th anniversary. I don't know if you want to tell us you got her lace, but if you want to give Rider Nation some pointers, what should you get your wife on a 13th anniversary?
I just gave her a credit card. That's what I did. I gave her the credit card, told her go have fun. Still didn't buy anything. That's my wife. Give her a couple $100. Say, hey, go have fun. I got the kids. She come back home with a coffee. That's my wife. Then she's everything I'm not. And we were completely opposite when we met. Now we're like one big happy. We're just one person together now.
Well, congratulations on 13 years, and thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
So there you go. Jamarcus Hardrick, yes, hardworking guy. It's amazing the hill that he's had to climb to get back onto the field after an injury that occurred almost 1 year ago to the day in BC. One that you heard. He couldn't get up off the chair without his wife's help, and then they celebrate their 13th anniversary with her buying herself a coffee. So
That sounds like our kind of anniversary.
Yeah, I
but
don't
only
know.
a McDonald's coffee, not the real expensive stuff.
Well, that's the question in our house, right? So it's our anniversary, so let's go out for supper. We're going to stand up or sit down, right? So that's the question. Drive through? Maybe. But yeah, so Jamarcus Hardrick, obviously, again, one to watch. And you can just hear, you could hear the little verb in his voice, right? The little vibration where, it's an emotional time. And as fans, right, we hear, okay, he's got a bicep injury. He's got, a leg injury or whatever. And we think in terms of weeks, and we often don't think about the terms that go with the rehab process and trying to get back. Like, for example, Sean Bain Jr. shaken up last year, right? And we see horrible leg injury, and that's kind of where our mind stops. We're not considering, okay, he might have to go under surgery. Then he's going to have to rehab all off season, and then he's still rehabbing to begin this season. The good news for Sean Bain Jr. fans, if you're following along and hadn't heard, he actually has been putting on a practice jersey. And he's done that for the last 2 weeks. So what that indicates is that he's getting closer. Now, he's not practicing or out on the field with the first-team offense, but he has been taking some scout team defense reps. So he's getting closer.
And then you think about it, it was such a dirty hit that he suffered from that Ottawa defensive back. It was filthy hit, and it ain't right when that happened.
Led to a rule change, right? The CFL
that's a good point.
Put the rule change in because of that hit, right? The receivers are protected down low and up high. Speaking of players that I don't think he needs protection, but he loves an escort, and that's Tommy Stevens, the quarterback for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. You like what he's done this year? 5 for 5 and 3rd and short?
Love it. Is he one of he'd be near the top of the best free agents Jeremy O'Day signed, I would think.
Well,
would you agree, or
that certainty is great to have, right? Like
it can decide a ball game.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt about it.
On 3rd and short, ask the Calgary Stampeders. They played in that monsoon, and the only time they've been stopped on 3rd down this season was in that monsoon, and they lost the game to Ottawa. So that's huge, and you can see even last week how that turned, right? And having that, and what did Jeremy O'Day say when he signed him? Well, I just want to see him running for us and not against us, right?
And look what happened to Calgary. That's a great point he made. Don't want him in Calgary.
No,
especially now with 3-1 and 4-0.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you'd think I would have thought that maybe there'd be some bitterness with Tommy Stevens, right? He left as a free agent. He wasn't like Jake Mayer. Jake Mayer, don't forget, the Roughriders went out and traded for Jake, and then were able to re-sign him.
Right.
But when it comes to Tommy Stevens, happy-go-lucky is the best way to express his mannerisms, because he's got a job to do. He knows that. He studies that. You can see that. He throws the ball effectively and efficiently when he gets an opportunity, when he's out in the field. And again, he just genuinely loves football. And so I talked to him after practice, and while we thought about talking about coming up against Calgary, he pointed out what Mike Rose essentially said: there's really nobody there that I was playing with. Like, that's a totally different team. I want to focus where I'm at. So we focused our conversation on what he does best, which is running the short yardage unit.
Tommy Stevens, 4-0 start as a Saskatchewan Roughrider. What was the bye week like for you?
It was good. Needed rest for not only me but the rest of the team. Good to I guess kind of reset and I guess redial our focus and get back to work.
Momentum, they say, doesn't carry over week to week, or does it?
I think it does. I think that you can build continuity with the team and kind of get more comfortable within the system if you're a new guy. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that you could, I guess, say that work with week to week, but each week is its own entity, and you got to bring it every single week as far as your preparation and learning a new opponent and all that stuff. So a little give and take both, I'd say.
Can you tell me how you approach a week? Because you've got a very important job, but also you could be thrown into the mix throwing the football in the next rep as well. How do you approach it?
Well, I think all three quarterbacks, all three quarterbacks that are active, all four of us are all learning at the exact same. So we're all preparing the same way that Trevor does. And then whenever they install short yardage, all four guys are getting short yardage installed as well. So just each week trying to learn from not only Trev, but if Jake's in there, if Jack's in there, whatever, just trying to learn from each other, and at the end of the day trying to get better.
Have you heard an ovation like you did last game against BC, not only when you're running third down, but again late in the fourth quarter when you got the ball in your hands?
It was pretty cool. I mean, it was still loud in there, and I just thought the fans really brought it, and it's been exciting to be here, to be part of the atmosphere that's in here in Mosaic, and I've been on the other side of it as well, so I'm glad that part of the good guys.
Could you tell me what that anticipation was like? Because you could feel something in the air when you went into the ball game, especially late in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a quick thing that happened, and asked me if I could do it, and I was like, absolutely. I would love to get in there and run some plays and try to run this out, and I thought we did a pretty good job of it, so hopefully we can build off of it.
Can you take me through, without giving away any trade secrets, what happens on a short yardage play? Like, I'm assuming there's footwork, there's obviously communication between you, the center, the rest of the offense. How do you prepare for that when you can't really rep it that much in practice?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do in practice, but ultimate buy-in by the guys, being able to take what we draw in the meeting rooms into a real situation that you really don't get a real rep of, right? So it just kind of trust and know that we're gonna be physical first and foremost, and do what we can to execute the play.
Certainly 4 weeks in, Rider Nation's got trust in number 17. Thanks for doing this.
I got trust in them. I love it here, man.
There you go, Tommy Stevens, first-year Saskatchewan Roughrider. Of course, if you look at the numbers, he's compiled them, and he's over 97% efficient when it comes to converting on short down situations. So,
you know
obviously,
what that's called?
No.
It's called 6'4", 245.
Well
and
said.
how do you stop a guy that's that size and is outweighing linebackers and defensive backs that are coming in to try to hit him?
Oh, but his athleticism too, right? Like, you've seen him. And he's stiff-arming guys. That 19-yard run in Toronto, that lifted the whole bench up.
And he's very quick off the snap.
Yeah.
Like, he's don't discount his quickness as to where he's going, and he's going quickly. Now, one of the funnest things I would think about being the Roughrider play-by-play man is the big plays.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the two that stick out for me is the Campbell pick six, and of course the ultimate Alford winning the game.
Yeah.
Rather than the game in Toronto. Like, why don't we listen to that clip and then we'll talk about it with how you wanted to call it.
Houda and Mario Alford back to return. This one will be taken by Alford right in the middle of the field at his 10, up to the 20, 25, 30, has a seam to the 40, 50, big field, Mario Alford down the sideline, he will be caught, two flags, Mario Alford, touchdown, Riders!
You got the feeling all game that Mario Alford
is that to call something like that, and how do you prepare in case something like that happens, Dave?
Okay, so I can tear back and take you behind the scenes on this play. So the Toronto Argonauts march the field on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So
Yes.
they get down there within 2 points. The Toronto Argonauts have an opportunity to go for two. They make an incredible play on the 2-point convert. We're tied.
Right.
So there's 23 seconds on the clock. Why that stands out is because there are certain things in Rider lore that are always going to stand out, 23 being Ron Lancaster's number. So 23 seconds, wow, that's pretty interesting. That's going to be something else. Yeah. So the funny part is to take you behind the scenes is that I didn't see the ball actually kicked off. I, at that time, was absolutely convinced that we were going to be going to overtime. So I was scrolling through my notes to find out what the CFL format is for overtime as to whether or not they're going to be taking a commercial break after regulation or not.
Okay, to make sure you had your breaks correct.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I didn't see the ball actually kick off. I heard it. So I look up, and now I see Mario get the ball. And I was a little surprised because, like Glenn Suter, who put it so well on the broadcast when he says, "Do you kick it to Mario?" And he says, "No." I did not think that ball was going to go to Mario Alford in my wildest dreams. And so he takes off, and I see him coming up. And the moment that I knew that he was likely going to get away was when Lake Corte Moore was running beside him. And we're going to show it on our stream. So if you get home and watch it on YouTube later, you'll see that Lake Corte Moore is running side by side. And what happens is the defender reached out to grab the ankle of Alford and missed and grabbed Corte Moore's ankle. So that's why Lake fell down on the play. And as soon as that happened and he didn't hit Mario, I'm like, okay, they're going to go. Now, Mario Alford, he's a farmer, right? West Virginia.
He used to chase cows.
Yeah.
That's why he's so fast in the farm.
Well, I don't know how fast a cow can. Well, actually, I do know, but we're not going to get into why I know how fast a cow can go. But Mario Alford, I had all these ideas dancing through my mind. So as the return is now going, Luke, as you can hear, is getting more excited.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And the booth that we broadcast out of in Toronto is very, very tight. Like, we're two big guys, and we're elbow to elbow, literally. And so Luke's getting excited, and he's flailing his arms. And so if you hear...
That sounds dangerous, by the way.
It is, absolutely. I've got the bruise on my ribs to show you. So if you are listening and you can pick up my voice cracks a little bit just as Mario gets into the end zone, that is when Luke hit me right on the rib cage and, again, kind of knocked the wind out of me. And you're so excited, the adrenaline is going, and then the rest is history from there. But that's behind the scenes when Mario Alford runs a ball back 91 yards for a kickoff return touchdown with 23 seconds left on the clock.
So here you are looking for where your breaks, your radio breaks, Pay the Bills is coming.
Yep.
And so it's almost like it took you by surprise. Well, it took everybody by surprise, but you in particular.
I saw where Mario lined up, and I thought, well, they're not even going to kick it to him. Like, I thought 23 seconds left, like, they'll probably even try to squib it down the middle of the field. And, again, we've seen Trevor Harris operate that less than 2-minute drill by throwing 3 plays real quick to get into field goal position. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a distinct possibility as to what could happen. But then, like I said, never did I imagine that they would go to Mario. And again, people are way smarter than me. Toronto only had 11 players on the field, so maybe that 11th player made a difference. I don't know. But end of the day, it was like, wow, things are going your way, right?
Well, I'm no special teams expert, but when you're missing a man, your lanes are getting screwed up. And I looked at that game as being we won in part because of a Toronto coaching error. And, we could go back to 2009, but we won't.
No.
In that situation, we won't.
We also had Coach Majiri on after that game, which works out, always great to have the special teams coach on after that. The player that they were missing was on the field side.
Okay.
So it likely wouldn't have had a huge impact, but you can go check out his interview with us because he goes into it a little bit, the call they had and why he didn't think they would actually squib kick it, because go figure, kicking a football is hard. So squib kicking, it's hard as well. But yeah, he was as surprised as we are that they kicked it straight to Alford too, I would say.
Well, yeah. The other part of that interview, Colson, that I remember that I thought was sensational, and again, you can listen to the coaches show. Go to sportscage.com under Saskatchewan Roughriders. It says the Riders Coaches Show, and you'll hear all the coaches talking about the games. And the one thing, well, what did you think about them having only 11 players on the field? And he said, I wouldn't mind if they only had 8. I would have been okay with that. So Kent Majuri gets that one.
People might criticize us right now and say, why are you talking about a play 3 weeks ago? And the answer is because, darn it, we still want to talk about it tomorrow.
Very
it was
true.
such a great play. Boy, I enjoyed your description of that play call for the Alford touchdown. Sports Cage continues in just a moment.